Every once in a while, I want to turn on Demon Souls and run through a game cycle in autopilot. I want to relax and enjoy the game without worrying or thinking too much. I want things to be easy and streamlined. I want to take in the scenery, the graphics, and the quirky things that can happen at any given time. For these kinds of occasions, I have a build that provides me absolute security. I present to you the Thiccness. A vitality build designed to deal as much damage as it can take. By executing every single advantage that we can get, we obtain a min-maxed monster that will give you every single upper hand available in the game. As always, we will review the stats of the build, the equipment that we use, and of course, its applications in both PvE and PvP. Since there is a lot of ground to cover, I have created timestamps in the description of this video in order to make it easier to navigate the content and give you the opportunity to skip straight to the part that interests you the most. Let's get started. The objective of this build is to make the game as easy as possible, while also maintaining the lowest amount of effort required to be successful. A build perfect for practice, as it allows you to not be heavily punished for the mistakes that you make. With a great balance of survivability and damage, you will be equipped and statted to handle every single challenge this game has to offer, all the way up to New Game Plus 5. To reach this objective, we will be running the following stats. Start the game as a knight. This class is the most efficient to reach the required stat block, allowing us to make use of every soul level possible. I created this build to be efficient in both PvE and PvP, so we're sticking to soul level 120. Finally, this is the stat block that you want to end up with. 76 Vitality, 15 Intelligence, 40 Endurance, 20 Strength, 14 Dexterity, 12 Magic, 16 Faith, and 7 Luck. To reach this point, I recommend that you take the following path. Your first priority should be to get your Vitality and Endurance to 20. These are the stats that would allow you to take more hits and attack more times while maintaining good mobility. Your damage should be good enough at the beginning of the game to take on the first few bosses until we get to this point. Remember to upgrade your weapon to keep the damage up. Your second priority is to get Intelligence up to 15 and Faith to 16. These are the stats that we need to cast Second Chance. It is our biggest defensive advantage and we want it to be live as soon as possible. The third priority is to get your Strength to 20, Dexterity to 14, and Magic to 12. We need these stats to properly wield our weapon of choice, the Northern Regalia. The fourth priority is to get Vitality and Endurance to 40 each. This will increase your survivability and prepare you for New Game Plus. Finally, we will finish the build by taking Vitality all the way up to 76 and giving us ludicrous amounts of health. So, why do we use these stats? Allow me to explain. Vitality is at 76 because this is one of the main points of the build, to get as much health as possible. With this level of Vitality, even at the high levels of New Game Plus 5, you will be able to survive multiple hits straight to your face. With this Vitality, you will have 1725 HP in human form, 862 HP in soul form, and 1207 HP in soul form with the Cling Ring. To put it into perspective, a character with 40 Vitality in human form has 1325 HP. With this build, you can have almost as much HP as the standard 40 Vitality human character while in soul form. The advantage is very noticeable. Intelligence at 15 because it will give us 2 memory slots for spells and enough MP to cast Second Chance. Endurance at 40 because we want the most stamina possible for mobility, weapon swings, and blocking. Strength at 20 because it is the minimum amount that we need in order to wield the Northern Regalia with one hand. Dexterity at 14 and Magic at 12 in order to meet the requirements to wield the Northern Regalia properly. Faith at 16 because besides meeting the requirements for the Northern Regalia, we need 2 miracle slots in order to attune Second Chance. Finally, Luck at 7 because it is the starting stat for Knights and we do not need to increase it at all. Moving on to the equipment, we are using, and will always use, the Northern Regalia. We have min-maxed this build to be able to take full advantage of this weapon. First of all, this weapon has no scaling with any character stat. This means that we can get max damage from just meeting the requirements. The weapon does scale with something else though. That is, character tendency. In order to draw out the maximum power of the Northern Regalia, you need to have this character be in pure white character tendency or pure black character tendency. Pick whichever you prefer and get to it. Once you do, this weapon's attack will increase to 540 AR, split damage, meaning 270 physical and 270 magical. This is an incredible amount of damage in comparison to the requirements we need to meet to get it. That is what allows us to get a hard-hitting character with so much health. In the offhand, we need 2 things. The first is a dark silver shield. This is, in my opinion, the best shield in the game. It provides 100% physical reduction, 100% magical reduction, and good enough stability to block a few hits. It also has the ability to parry. For its weight, you will not find a more efficient shield, especially for PvP, where magic spells are very dangerous. The second offhand equipment is a Blessed Iron Knuckle +5. We want this weapon for the passive health regeneration of 6 HP per second. The fact that it can parry while on your offhand is also very important, as you're able to maintain this health regeneration without giving up the option to parry. In regards to Catalyst, the best one to have is definitely the Talisman of Beasts. That said, I personally do not use spells enough with this build to justify it. Using a standard Talisman of God is enough just to cast Second Chance. If at any moment I require to cast a spell, I just switch to a wooden catalyst. Rings are a very important part of any build. The best part of running this character is that the rings can be anything you want, depending on what you prefer and what you need. I, for example, always run the Regenerator's Ring and the Eternal Warrior's Ring. The Regenerator's Ring stacks with the Blessed Iron Knuckles that we have, for a total of 10 HP per second regeneration. Combined with the fact that we are running over 1700 HP in human mode, we can get to full HP in about 170 seconds. This makes us really hard to kill. The Eternal Warrior's Ring provides us with faster stamina regeneration. More stamina means that we can block more, attack more, and dodge more. This maintains our mobility in top shape even during an intense boss fight. That being said, there are other good options. If you want even more HP, you can use the Ring of Longevity for an additional 5% HP. That means that you could reach over 1800 HP in human form, and that is truly scary. If you prefer to play in soul form, the Cling Ring is an obvious choice, and we cannot forget the Thief Ring to make some bosses easier or to completely skip parts of some levels. Use what you prefer and come up with a combination that suits you the best. In regards to spells, there's only one that is crucial. I have mentioned it a few times before, and it is Second Chance. For those that do not know, if you have this spell active, you will regain 50% of your HP the first time that you would die. To put that into context, that means that if we have 1725 HP in human form, if an attack would kill us, instead we will reset to 862 HP. This means that in order to actually die, we need to take the total of 2587 HP before we actually drop. And this does not take into consideration the passive health regeneration or any possible healing that we do. As I mentioned before, it will be very difficult to die with this build. With this character, we also have 2 attunement slots for spells. You can use any spells that you want. I prefer Death Cloud, especially for PvP, but Cloak is good for stealth. Relief, if you want some co-op support, or Poison Cloud, if you want to cheese some bosses, are all good choices. Finally, let's talk about the armor. Normally, I tell you that the armor does not matter. I tell you to use whatever you want and to prioritize fashion over anything. This is not the case with this build. For this character, we need to wear the Ancient Kings set. This is the best armor in the game when you compare defense to weight ratio, and on top of this, the armor does not give you any stamina regeneration penalties. With this build, we are looking for the most efficient armor possible, and this is it. This build is perfect for a leisure PvE experience. The ludicrous amounts of HP combined with good armor and full mobility means that there is very little opportunity for mobs and bosses to kill you. Gravity and falling to your death are bigger threats than any enemy or boss that the game can offer. On top of this, the Northern Regalia provides incredible damage for the little amount of investment that we have to make. The result is an extremely efficient build that suffers from very little drawbacks. One of the first advantages of the Northern Regalia is that its damage is set, regardless of stats. As a result, there is no damage increase from two-handing the weapon. Wielding the Northern Regalia one-handed with a shield up at all times is extremely effective for dealing with all of the different archstones, especially the Valley of Defilement. Of course, the moveset of the weapon is also very beneficial. With the standard Greatsword moveset, we have access to both vertical and horizontal swings, allowing quick adaptability to all types of terrain and spaces. While the weapon does have split damage values, lowering its overall offensive capabilities, this is easily offset by the large amount of versatility that we get from it due to its low stat requirement and lack of scaling for many stats. As mentioned before, with 1725 HP in human form plus the 50% bonus of second chance if needed, and an additional 10 HP per second regeneration, this build is seriously hard to kill. The amount of mistakes that you would need to make in order to die with this character is, quite frankly, hard to reach. With good rolls, blocks, and parries mitigating some of the damage, it is truly a build that gives you top-tier survivability. This is a very good build to use if you're trying to run multiple game cycles on the same character. Whether you want to get the Platinum Trophy, the Penetrator's Armor, or simply challenge yourself all the way up to New Game Plus 5, this is a build that will get you there, and it will do so with incredible reliability. It is important to note that this build is also very good online. Whether you are invading another player or helping someone in co-op, we have so much health that even with the penalties of soul form, we would have almost the same amount of health as the human host in both cases. Add the allies ring or the foes ring, depending on your situation, to increase damage, and we have an amazing display of both attack and defense in a single package. When it comes to PvP, this build performs perfectly. That being said, mileage may vary. It is important to understand that no matter how much health, defense, or regeneration we have, player skill will still be needed. You have a greatsword, your attacks are somewhat slow, and trying to dead angle will be a necessity. Understanding matchups is key. Understanding when to turtle behind the shield to regenerate some health, or when to keep the pressure on the opponent are things that come from experience. On paper, the build performs well, whether you're invading others or being invaded yourself. In fact, This build is specifically useful for when you are being invaded. The sheer amount of health far outclasses the possible health of an invader. Your chances of survival are very high, and invader frustration is a great possibility. I definitely recommend this build to those players that wish to run through PvE online in human form while doing some co-op. Invasions will be less scary and definitely less stressful if you're running this build. That being said, when it comes to these kinds of min-max, high-efficiency builds, it is important to understand that they are not easy mode when it comes to PvP. Proper play is still needed, and do not expect this build to do work automatically. Player skill is, very much, still a requirement when it comes to fighting other players. I'm going to be honest with you, 100%, this is not my favorite build. I am more of a strength faith type of guy. That said, to ignore the power of this vitality build would be foolhardy. It makes PvE extremely easy and definitely increases your firepower for PvP. This is an incredibly powerful build that takes advantage of many different aspects of the game in order to maximize its potential. The pros of this build are great damage, incredible defense, and fantastic survivability. On the other hand, it is important to note that it does take a full playthrough to come online. Northern Regalia cannot be obtained until King Allant is defeated, and that could take a while. This may make the first game cycle a bit more difficult, but with 20 strength, you can definitely two-hand the Dragon Bone Smasher and go to town. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this guide, this is a perfect build to pick up and play with little effort when you need some relaxing demon slaying. It will not disappoint you, and I can guarantee you that it is a very fun build. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope I get to see you on the next one.